Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Rogue Logic. If you could, I would really appreciate it if people would like, subscribe, hit notifications, and share the videos. It really does help a lot, and I would expand my audience, and I'd appreciate it. Upon reviewing things, I've seen that I don't really have this very important video that I'm going to shoot here now that really gives a synopsis of why I began doing YouTube videos, where it's going, and what I'm going to continue to do with it. So with that, let me say this. I have mentioned it in many of my videos because it does affect things that I do. It affects really every aspect of my life. And what prompted me to do this is that I received a really disturbing diagnosis of pancreatic cancer a few years ago. And until you hear those words, cancer in general, you just don't have any clue as to the monumental effect that it will have on your life and the things that you're going to need to go through in order to get through that well, no matter what the circumstances are. So let's get back to that. Okay, so pancreatic cancer. As soon as anyone hears that, you pretty much are like, oh great,
The bell
I'm
tolls
dead.
for thee.
And luckily that is not the case, and luckily there are some incredible people out there in the medical community, and there's a continuous evolution of different treatments and different ways to go about battling cancer. And the first thing I'd like to say about that is I myself have seen this through the many years prior to me ever getting cancer. And I can say without a doubt that my father, for instance, who passed away a couple years ago, his initial cancer diagnosis was colon cancer. And had he received that diagnosis probably even 10 years prior to when he did, he wouldn't have made it through. His was rather advanced. He didn't go to the doctor when he should have, and I think he could have avoided a lot of pain that he went through. And but that's neither here nor there because that's all in the past. But yeah, basically, get regular colonoscopies, especially if you had any cancer in your family, and that and so forth. I mean, that's just pretty much becoming, I think, pretty much known to everyone that this is something very important to do. So I'm gonna try to quickly tell my story and give you a little rundown of how that went about. All right, so I was having some issues with my health a few years ago. I was experiencing in retrospect now, I can look back and see a couple of the things that I didn't really notice at the time. One of them was getting kind of faint and having some dizzy spells that was very much unlike anything that ever happened to me before, but I really wrote it off to not getting enough sleep, perhaps just stress. I, for many years, had been a caretaker for both of my parents, my father having cancer, my mother having MS. And honestly, the things in my life were not really going very smoothly the way I wanted them to, and whatever. So I thought, I'm really pushing myself over the edge here, and I'm having a lot of stress. This eventually evolved into extreme pain in my lower left back. And, once again, cancer just doesn't come to mind for anyone at all. And, in a more involved video, I could tell you much more about the particulars of what led up to my diagnosis, because that is a story in itself, and that is another reason why I urge everyone, please go make sure that you are extremely comfortable with your general practitioner, that it's somebody that you know is a dedicated person and health professional, and stick with your checkups and things. Again, I'm not going to get into the details, but what led to my diagnosis was, just some really ineptitude that could have led to my death, is really what it could have led to. So I'm happy to say going forward that I have an excellent general practitioner. She is a great doctor and has been with me throughout the whole ordeal of getting pancreatic cancer. And so yes, let's start there. So I got this pain. I'm going to skip up to the fact of the actual diagnosis. So you hear those words, and there's just not much that can be said for hearing that you have cancer of any kind. It's of course frightening, it's life altering, and it's just completely hits you like a freight train. So with the first operation that I had to have, as in disbelief as I was that I was going through this, because until it happens to you, you just never think of it as you, even if your family members or friends have had cancer or whatever. And I really just didn't even think of the possibility of not surviving. And now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but further on in the story, I can tell you what I would tell you about that feeling. So the first round, I had to go through chemotherapy, which was very unpleasant. You lose your taste, you lose a lot of weight, and of course you have a lot of side effects where you don't feel well all the time. But basically, the prognosis for this time was I had the opportunity to have what is called a Whipple surgery. If you're not familiar with this, they basically remove the top half of your pancreas. They take a bit of your stomach, your gallbladder, and I believe possibly a bit of your, I don't think so. I'm not going to comment on that until I'm absolutely sure. But it's a procedure done for people who have pancreatic cancer in the upper pancreas, which is always a better outcome for you, because if it's in the lower part of your pancreas, that's when it is usually fatal. And if it has gotten to that point, it can be pretty much the end of the line. So, I got through this round of chemotherapy, went into the hospital pretty much thinking, okay, I'm going to have this operation, I'm going to recover, and I'm going to be able to close that door behind me and be done with it. Well, unfortunately, that is not what life had in store. The operation was not a success. In fact, it wasn't finished. As they went in to do the Whipple procedure, they found a tumor in my liver, and so immediately the operation was shut down, closed up. Again, this is another whole story. I will tell that in another video of its own. So now I'm left in a different place. The place you're left in after that is, okay, we're very sorry that this didn't work, and you're going to have to understand that, yes, we're going to continue to try treatments, but your prognosis is 3-6 months, somewhere in that region. So yeah, I don't know how else to explain this to anybody other than the fact that this is a devastating, I'm speechless here for a moment. It's a devastating realization that you have to take into account. And this is what I'm going to tell everybody about the steps that happen. Number 1, shock. Now, you may not even know you're in shock. I certainly didn't know, but I would say that lasted, for me, only a short time, because there are different personality types, and mine is a very half glass full type of personality, and optimism mixed with life experience, so mixed with realism. But the shock kind of wore off quickly, and I just basically, what I call, go into battle mode, where I knew now there's only one thing to focus on, and that is living. The problem is, as you go forward, I do believe the next stage, number 2, is a bit of denial. Now, the comment I'd like to make on this is, I don't mean denial in the sense where you're just, no, this isn't happening to me, I'm not going to accept it, I'm not going to get any treatment, and I'm going to be fine. Okay, now, I personally know people who've done this, and they are dead. All of them. Every one of them who did this are dead, because they decided that modern science was not correct, and that they had their own way to deal with these things. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm blanking on his name right. Steve Jobs, I believe, if I'm correct. I'll put the information up here. Did not want to believe that he needed to get treatment for pancreatic cancer, and I believe that's what killed him. There's going to be some major editing here if I've got the wrong person, but I think that's it. So here it is. Denial in what I'm saying, the only positive side of denial is that what I mean is I'm going to fight, I'm going to deny death taking me too soon, and I'm going to fight as hard as I can with the best medical professionals and the best science available at the time. So I think once that happened, stage number 3 for me was what I call struggle. And this one was maybe the most difficult, because this is the one where you really need to get to the point where you have a balance of acceptance and defiance, and I wasn't quite there yet. So the struggle period, when I was having more prolonged chemotherapy, I was having to write my will, I was having to get my affairs in order, because more than likely I wasn't going to be here for very long. And then stage 4 I call acceptance/defiance. So what do I mean by this? What I mean is this. It's such an odd duality, but the best thing that ever happened to me in a very bad situation, I don't wish this upon anyone, and I don't advocate that this is a good way to come to these conclusions, but that was my pathway. Acceptance of your mortality. Really difficult, especially in Western culture. We have these, we just don't talk about death if we can avoid it. And for people who are very religious, say Christian, primarily Jewish and Muslim people, all have their faith, as they call it, and that's fine. If that gives you some kind of comfort and stuff, I think that's great, as long as you don't push it on other people. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of religion and non-religion, but for myself, I think 2 things. Number 1, I don't believe in organized religion, and number 2, if you have any religion or spirituality, I believe it's a very private matter. I don't think that it needs to be pushed upon anyone, and I don't think I think you should be thinking about your life here and now and doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because you're going to get a reward or going to get punished afterwards. But that aside, I was able to accept that I was not going to be here. And that was the most powerful thing that had ever happened to me. And I probably am going to say probably that ever will. And it changes you in such a way that anything that you had before, as far as fears or doubts about yourself, or things that you find, idiosyncrasies that you worry about, or things you're self-conscious of, it's all gone. And then I was able to move into defiance. And so by having acceptance, if I wasn't going to make it, if my will and my hope and all of this and the people around me and love and empathy and whatnot, if all of this wasn't going to work, I was going to leave this world in peace. And there's no way to describe going through this. It just leaves you fearless, and it's a good thing in a way. But it also led me to be able to be defiant. And it gave me the strength to go forward and struggle through horrendous chemotherapy, which I will say this: I've seen people who have had it much worse than I did, and it was unpleasant, let me tell you. It was awful. But I know other people had it worse. I don't know if that's maybe because I was a bit younger. Not that people don't get cancer at every age. It depends on what kind of chemotherapy, how your body can tolerate it. I don't want to make light of it because it just fucking sucked, to be honest. But I do think that people had it worse. And then as far as moving forward to the second surgery, all of this is where your caregivers come into such great importance. And as I said, I have a general practitioner, Kirsten Grillo, who is just an amazing, amazing doctor and just is there for you as a patient. Then moving on, my first oncologist was Dr. Christine Gomez. She is the reason that I was able to get a referral to the second surgeon who was going to take on my case, even though I was in a very unique place. And his name is Dr. Oscar Serrano. And to both of them, I owe you my life. And to the nursing staff up at Smilow Cancer Center, all of you are, I just can't tell you how much I love you all and how much you gave to me. And you were just incredible. To the other surgeons and assistants and anesthesiologists and everyone else up at Hartford Hospital, I can't thank you enough. And also to Dr. Alizad, which was, he was my oncologist after Dr. Gomez did move her practice out of state. And he also was a great advocate for me and really just always very positive. So my thanks to all of you. And what I'd like to just finish this up with is that after cancer, post-cancer, to finish the story, I went for my second operation. It was a success. The long bout of chemotherapy had pretty much left my tumors had shrunk down to very tiny proportions, so I had the opportunity to get this surgery. The surgery was rough, and but the way things happen these days, you're actually, the next day they had me standing, and I'm talking about you have a part of your pancreas taken away, a part of your stomach, some part of your upper intestines, your gallbladder. Actually, mine was already removed from the prior surgery, but again, that's a different story. You have tubes sticking out of you that are drainage for where my liver was operated on and where my pancreas was operated on, with these catches that have blood and all kinds of nasty stuff in them. You have tubes down your throat, in your nose, and basically for days you have to have all of your system is cleaning out all of the bad elements and the fluids and things, and it is absolutely vile because you're like in a Frankenstein monster's laboratory or Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory, where there's these big vats of yellow and brown. It's pretty horrific, but it's also what saved my life. And so it was successful. And my thanks to everybody again. I can't tell you how much it means to get a second chance at life and to really move up to what I wanted to get to. Is initially my videos on YouTube were going to be just about cancer, survival of cancer, some of the things that you go through, maybe a lot of the things that you don't think of during your cancer, like life goes on. You still have bills, you still have, all of these things happen, and the your insurance can be an issue, all of these things. So I will periodically do videos on these subjects, but for my message to everyone, if you get a second chance like I have a unique chance here. And I just feel an obligation to share my story with people as much as I can. And I do hope that I can speak about this in a public forum sooner rather than later, because everyone has a story. No cancer patient or anyone who's seriously ill has just, it's different for everyone, and there's always hope no matter what. And I just can't explain enough how that is so true, and that part of your struggle, wherever it leads you, is to go well with your future, no matter what it is, because every moment we have is so precious. I cannot, it sounds like a cliche, but it isn't. I cannot express enough to everyone, please take the extra time to, however you want to put it, to smell the roses, to pet your cat one more time that day because he loves it, to say to someone that you know that you love them. When you think, oh, I won't say, just say it. Do it. Do the things you always wanted to do. And to finish up, before I get a little bit too sappy here, I do want to expand, and have expanded my channel into some of my political leanings and my beliefs, some fun stuff that I did for Halloween. And, I don't want to limit myself to just talking about cancer, because the whole point of beating it is to move on. And for me, moving on, this is the direction that I've chosen to go, because I have been left with some side effects. If you have very long-term chemotherapy, often you'll get neuropathy. And I can't feel my legs from my knees down, and my feet are always tingling. And in the winter and the cold, sometimes it actually becomes painful. I have slight neuropathy in both of my hands. Luckily, I've gotten enough back in my hands where I can still draw. I've always been an artist. I can still write. So that is really a great thing. I do suffer from fatigue, and that can be very, very random. I can have weeks where I'm fine, and then I can have a couple days in a row where you just can't get up, really. It's not the same as being tired. You just can't get up, and you need to really have more relaxation, and just, it comes and goes. So, it takes away your ability to maybe do other work that you had done prior to that. And then lastly, the only other real side effect is that, there are certain medications that I have to take, enzymes that are replenishing things that my body doesn't produce anymore. And, I have to take these for the rest of my life. All that being said, all of these things you can adapt to, you can deal with, and they are a small price to pay to be able to be here on planet Earth with all of you and with everybody that I love and care about for a longer time. I mean, people suffer a lot worse than, what I'm dealing with. So what I did was say, what would I like to do? What can I do with my life that is going to make it worthwhile, and something that I find really stimulating for me to do, and that can really help people, because I never want anyone to go through this without having hope, without having alternatives, and without having a desire to move forward. So that's where I'm coming from with my channel in general. Um, as I said, I had to move on to some other of my interests because that's the point here. You know, cancer, you don't get cancer so then you can dwell on it for the rest of your life. I do want to go out and advocate for people, and I do want to expand on that, which I will, but I also want to do a lot of other fun things, and that's what I've been given the opportunity to do. So thank you, thank you, thank you again to everyone who supported me, my wife, my family and friends, my close friends, you know who you are, all of the medical staff, all the people in the community who really went to bat for me. And that's it. Just, you know what, everybody? We all have our differences. We have more alike than we have differences. So please, you know, be kind to one another whenever you can, including yourself, which is almost all the time. And always be kind to animals because they are just, I'm telling you, the greatest gift that we've been given are these other creatures we share the earth with. So they need us to be their voice. I hope everyone has a great, great afternoon and a great 2023. Peace.